Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here. Let's start with a summary of the entire thing, right? Regardless of your choice, I think that both characters in 1.2 offer you tremendous of long-term value. The real question that we want to answer in this video is which is better for your account, because every account is different, and is it even worth it to pick them up now? If they are good in long-term, might as well just pick them up and rerun, right? And always with these better investment videos, we will talk about different categories, super unbiasedly, just comparing logic for you guys to help you make a better decision. If you want to care about my personal bias and my honest thoughts, I'll leave it right at the end of the video for those of you who care about that. First things first, Caesar is probably, like, the best analogy to talk about Caesar is like a cocktail. In Singapore, we call it rojak, where she's just a combination of many different food all added together. And a cocktail, what is a cocktail? She's a mix of stun, defense, as well as support. This is an incredible combination, very similar to like Seth already that we see in the game. And of course, as of time of recording, we are in the midst of testing. I can't give official information out yet because they are still unofficial in a sense, but we will have more guides on these characters definitely on the channel. You can check it out when they are released. I'll just give you a nutshell of things because numbers are of course subject to change. She has attack buff in her kit, which is already announced in the live stream. This attack buff is not like 10 damage, 10 attack buff, 20. It is very, very significant. Think of the likes of like Sokaku levels of significant. So when your shield is up, she not only gets that super armor protection, which is a defense character, as a huge damage block that you get. So you have some protection, but the attack buff, massive. So you have a bit of that already. And on top of that, her additional ability, when she procs it, she's able to like buff the damage of your entire team by a massive amount. I can't exactly say the exact percentage, but this is a significant amount as of time of recording. And that makes her a very, very solid character to play, because you are silently a support, damage buffer, attack buffer, defense where you protect, and she scales with impact, which means you want to build her for impact so that you have a thicker shield. Her shield scales with impact. So she, in the end, what will she look like? Massive shield, so you don't really need like HP defense stats, which is like not really very useful. Massive amounts of impact, so she's like a pseudo stun because she has so high impact, and she does a lot of buffing. Cocktail mix, an excellent fine cocktail. I would like to drink one of those cocktails, definitely, for sure. You can get everything and you can save a lot of money. So I think that is a very interesting thing about Caesar as well. Another thing to note, her debuff is very easy to proc the damage increase that you give your entire team. All you just need to do is have a defensive assist character on your team, another one, so not just her. And out of all the characters in the game, there are only two types of assist. If you go into like the skill bar, the assist section, you're either a defensive assist. For example, the likes of Nicole is a defensive assist. You have like even Ben, Ting Yi, Seth, a lot of characters are like defensive assist. The other type which doesn't benefit her is evasive assist. Something like Rena, something like Grace. When you like assist with them, they're like dodging instead of actually doing damage. Some slow the time and whatnot. So defensive assist works very well for her. Super easy to proc. It's way easy. You don't even need elements. You don't even need like unit roster. You don't even need type. There's only two types of assist: defense or assist. Or evasive. Very easy to proc her additional ability, and that is, I think, one of the key standout winners for her. Current game state, I feel that Caesar offers a lot of value because we need stun, we need support. We only have like one limited stun currently, and she offers a bit of both. At the same time, she offers you a bit of protection for those of you who want that. That's probably the least valuable thing in the current game state. But now, enough about one side here. Let's switch on to the other side. And this unit is by no means a slouch. This is already like very hard to compare against a character as cocktaily as a character, for example, like Caesar. But Burnice, she is very strong as well. Think of her like the Xing Qiu equivalent of in Zenless Zone 0. And I think the question is, do we need an off-field damage dealer in Zenless Zone 0? That is the upside potential, upside risk that we have. But still, she offers you off-field burn damage when she enters like her passion state, and she starts like every character other on the team as you're attacking the unit. They will continue stacking like burn build up, burn anomaly build up, and get some damage over time. That is very incredible. I think that has a lot of useful potential, especially if you're looking for a future team composition of multiple DPSs all doing damage. Burnice probably will anchor herself as the slot number 2 for most anomaly teams in future as well. I am really excited for that. In my opinion, what do I think? It's a right call by Hoyoverse to put Caesar in the first half and put Burnice in the second half. Caesar was the one with a bit more uncertainty, as we talked about in our power creep video. But now that we see her kit, I actually am testing her out a little bit as well. I really like this character a lot. But in this comparison, logical comparison, I think, in my opinion, Caesar wins in terms of utility. She wins of everything that she does utility outside of her protection aspect, because defense protection doesn't help you increase your DPS right now. That is the only thing that is limiting her. But by far, her other cocktail mix is just so efficient that I can't just not recommend anyone not pick her up. It's just so useful. Stun proxy, damage buffer. What more can we want from that? Burnice, in my opinion, currently the game state is a little bit more niche. She because you either have to play into like burn teams that specifically want to burn enemies, or teams that are based in Anomaly, which are a much smaller pool of team compared to Caesar, but they are both very strong. I will give this round 1 win to Caesar. Next up, of course, in the current situation also, we need to consider the alternatives. Whenever we are thinking about like picking characters up urgently, we need to talk about who else can do the role that they can do. And this is where Burnice starts to shine, burn, whatever analogy that you call it. But I think where Burnice shines is the alternatives that we have in the game. If you are looking for a quick swap, damage over time kind of anomaly style unit, we have none at all. The only other characters that can leave like on-field stuff are probably like some of the supports that do damage over time, but none of them help build up the anomaly as quickly as Burnice. Numbers need to be finalized, and her utility in this section really depends on how fast her off-field application of burn is, and those numbers are always subjected to change. Phil, don't worry, we will always do reviews on the channel updating this as well, but that's what key thing that I want you to take note of. If her burn application is freaking good, like you have a lot of burn application off-field, I think Burnice is like tremendously strong and is best in slot for any anomaly teams moving forward. The only closest competitor to her is a low field time character like Grace, but Grace doesn't offer you that off-field burn application over time, which helps you. Off-field application basically reduces the need for your character to stay on-field, and this is tremendous because doing more off-field means you have more characters acting all at once, increasing the utility of your overall roster. So Burnice, tremendously strong. I really like that about her. Very little alternatives. If you're talking about like using her as a main DPS on-field character, sure, you have competition like Jane Doe, you have competition like Piper, some people play Grace on-field as well for Anomaly, but still, in her class where I think she shines is a switch between the main DPS, sub DPS, off-field, and that's where I think she will establish her place in the long term moving forward as well. Burnice. Moving on to the other flip side of things, there are quite a bit of alternatives for a character like Caesar. If you are talking about a cocktail, the problem that Caesar generally suffers with is when you are a cocktail mix, you suffer from like a jack of all trades, master of one syndrome in this case. The master of one that she is defense category. She has that super invulnerable state where you like can't get knocked back, so your combos don't get interrupted. You have a massive thick shield as well, but at the same time, this master of one currently doesn't really matter too much, so you have alternatives if you're looking for like protection of Ben. That's why Ben is like not super attractive now, because no one really cares too much about the damage block. More people really care about what buffs can you do, how much buffing you can do in the current game state. And if you're talking about the buffing category like supports, you have anomaly based buffers like, for example, Seth. You have other damage buffers, attack buffers, for example, your supports, which are specializing in the category, who can also use W engines to additionally further that buff. That's where I think Caesar starts to fight a lot more competition, because if you are just looking for her for your buffing capability, why don't you just run a support? The defense W engines are not very attractive for buffing compared to the supports also. So that is one stiff competition that she suffers from. Last but not least, she's great for stun also, but the stun category are much more specialized in that sense. Right now we only have Ting Yi, but when we have more specialist units of stun coming out in future, which we definitely will, then she's going to be pushed into a little bit of a crowded space because she fights with everyone until, of course, the day that defense starts to shine. There are alternatives for her. Defense characters compete well with her, and if you are not rushing for anything of a cocktail mix, you don't really need her entire kit. Perhaps you can make do with some alternatives as well. And that is my thought comparing these two. In my opinion, in this category of alternatives, Burnice does seem a little bit more unique. Her kit offers something special. Caesar is just a collective of many different things, which is unique by itself, but Seth is a similar character that probably is close to a character like Caesar as well. Especially if you have E6 Seth, I wouldn't rush it in the alternatives category. Now, talking about current value is really great, but we also need to talk about the future value. And in this section, it's really about their power creep potential. How long will these characters last? If they are much better in future and they're waiting for something to happen, you might as well pick them up on a future date, right? And of course, we know more gear is going to come out, more drive discs that we can have. We will be talking about the 2 new drive discs on our channel as well. And both of these characters fit very nicely. They have great kit already that they have. And great support in 1.2 with the new sets coming up too. The question about future value over here, the biggest thing that is on my mind is, what is the place of defense characters? Are they just going to be a jack of all trades? We see 2 characters like that. Seth is a bit of a jack of all trades. You have now Caesar does seem like jack of all trades in terms of playing the multiple categories. But what is the purpose of protection? One of the biggest things that I think about is, if you can figure out what is the defense place in the future, I think then it's easier to justify a defense character to pick for. That is the biggest issue with future value for defensive units here. Burnice, on the other hand, is a lot clearer. Any team that focuses on anomaly, Burnice will probably be best in slot because of her ability to be on field, prop that burn, swap into another character, hit that disorder, and at the same time, while you're hitting that disorder, you're stacking another stack of burn. So at most, you switch back to Burnice, you burn a little bit more, disorder again, and you just have that rotation so smooth, and a large portion of your damage is going to come from disorder because of the massive quick build-up. So that, I think, is much clearer in terms of future value for this character. Off-field damage scales well in multiple DPS teams. When you have something like this, and if let's say you want everyone on field, that's why you don't play a team of Jane, you don't play a team of Zhu Yuan and Ellen all at one time, right? If not, you just run triple DPS and you do tons of damage. But the reason for that is because all of them want to share on-field time. Someone has to do the damage, someone needs to take a back seat. Why supports are good is because you increase the damage of your damage dealer. At the same time, they take up very little field time, so you can spend more time on one unit. In future, we will likely have double DPS teams, for example, maybe like Jane Doe and Burnice, where you have someone dealing the damage and someone dealing off-field damage, then you swap them in whenever they have their spikes and whatnot. I think that moving forward, double DPS teams will definitely be the way in future too. So Burnice offers tremendous amount of value. The question, of course, and the thing that is unknown is, even if her damage is like super low, like her off-field damage is super low, the ability to improve burn time is already valuable. The fact that she can increase like burn off-field, I think that is super strong too. In my opinion, in this category, future value, talking about like power creep moving forward, Burnice, in my opinion, wins. As she scales with more anomaly units in the near future, the more anomaly units she has, she isn't boxed out. In fact, she welcomes new anomaly units, especially DPS units. Since she can play with more characters, she can switch between like on-field, off-field mode, which I like a lot, very flexible in the near term. But I think where Caesar shines is she might find herself, where she suffers is she finds herself like a Swiss Army knife when you have more competition. You have this like very solidly well-made Swiss Army knife, but when you're trying to cut like steak, your beef steak with a Swiss Army knife, you're going to struggle. You might as well cut it with like a proper knife, which is like maybe a stun character in certain situations also. So that is where I think in terms of future value is a little bit less clear, but yet still you are comparing like a super useful utility character versus a character that likely will scale with a bit more characters coming in the game. This is a very tough choice. I have to give it logically to the character of least resistance in terms of future value. Burnice does feel a little bit better at this point of time for this future value section on power creep. But of course, that's not it. One, you guys know already, and you know it's coming. There is a flip side to this. There is a potential section that we need to talk about. And potential section, I always talk about this because instead of talking about game state and meta, we need to turn our attention to Hoyoverse as looking at their patterns that we have been playing their games for the past 4 to 5 years. What do they like to do, and some warning signs that I see. The first thing of all that I think is really important, and this is the category that really differentiates everything and probably is the biggest part. Hoyoverse never releases a category, a class, a path, or whatever it is, a weapon classification for no reason. And whenever something seems out of place, which defense does feel like a fish out of water right now, but when you have this kind of situations, Hoyoverse will definitely try to do something in future, and that I think is a very huge upside looking at Hoyoverse trends in the past. In other games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, regardless of what element you were from, regardless of what path, erudition or whatnot, you would find yourself having a day sometime to shine, and defense would definitely have its day. And that is of course it's a bet, right? But it's a justified bet because of the trend that we have seen in the developer trends too across the past years that we are playing their games. They don't release something for no reason, and we can bet eventually defense will have a reason. Caesar in this category offers great long-term potential. She has placed into a class that currently is out of place, and once we get a day, like maybe we have a form that you have no character can take any damage, or all your character has like 1 HP only, 1 HP run, or a debuff on the field that slowly saps all your HP as the fight goes on. You fight for 2 minutes with the boss battle at your shield defense, all your character be at 1 HP. That is going to be very tough, and you'll wish you had a defensive unit, for example, like Caesar, or perhaps they can have HP decay characters We do not have a character like that where, for example, you have them on field, they set their own life by sacrificing their blood or something. You have that in Hu Tao, Xiao in Genshin Impact. You have other characters in Honkai Star Rail like Blade, Jing Liu, these kind of characters, Ireland, who set their HP. Caesar will be great for these kind of units, which we currently do not see in game, and that is huge upside. And this category, I think Caesar definitely wins by a far margin. There's just so many warning signs that tells me that this character is going to be relevant in future, and even though she is a little bit question mark right now, she's still very useful in terms of her a Swiss Army knife potential too. The last category, now let's talk about this one here. Free-to-play potential talks about what gear do they have. It's very different when you are talking about E0 or a base copy M0 without their signature W engine versus multiple copies of them with their signature. Between the two of them, it's quite easy to say. I think that Burnice is a much more free-to-play friendly option because you have a lot of W engines available right now. You have this Rainforest cute W engine here that just gives her what she needs, anomaly, and you have, of course, on the flip side, W engines for defense are absolutely trash. You don't really have good ones. In fact, probably the better one is this defense buff, the battle pass one that allows you to like transfer some utility over to the rest of the team. Not that great also, until new W engines come out, which might also be like gacha, because the Seth signature is like gacha, right? You can't just get it as a free-to-play option. You don't really have too many options. We'll touch on Caesar build in a bit in the next few videos, but you know that there's not too much options for a free-to-play player, and it's a little bit worse compared to like if you were pulling for a signature. So that is between the two. And one last thing to note, of course, at this section, I want to talk about this Infernal Metal set, which I think has a lot of potential, which is not touched on. This gives a massive 28% crit rate if the enemy is burning. This synergizes very nicely with a character like Burnice, who is able to keep their uptime on burn. I wouldn't be surprised if people would play Burnice into odd team compositions just to maximize this 28% crit rate. 28% is huge. If you combine this 28% combined together with like the other set, you can get a massive amounts of crit rate just from the 4-piece alone, allowing you to stack into a lot of crit damage. You just have to have that uptime on burning, which if the numbers are right for Burnice, and she can get good numbers, this might be a very huge matter for free-to-play players who are just looking to min-max their gear, and that is something an upside for the future. But a lot of talk, I think here in this category, free-to-play potential, Burnice will win slightly because of the gear that's available to her. At the end of the day, what is my thoughts? Comparing between both of them, this is a really tough one. One is a stable recommendation, as she's a cocktail of utility, right? She's a stun, she's a support, she's a protection unit, all in one. Burnice, on the other hand, offers a lot of upside potential if Anomaly is like whoever's fancy. If they decide to go down that way, they want to introduce more off-field DPS, supportive ability for burning. Maybe if you have longer procs, characters get certain buffs too. In my case, in my thoughts, both are solid picks. You can't go really wrong with either, and I think both of them will see upside in future. But in my opinion, my personal bias, I'll go with Caesar, for she's the path of least resistance right now. You can run Caesar in one half. If you even put for Ting, you can run Ting in the other half. They'll find good value each side. So for the sake of lower downside risk, I would pick Caesar. Burnice does seem a little bit high risk, high reward kind of game style, and my recommendation has to take into account the majority of people, so that will be my recommendation. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, and subscribe. Share with any of your friends who want to compare between these two and making a decision, but I want you to watch these two videos right now where we touch on more detail, more lore on the two characters. Thank you again so much for watching. See you next video.